this comparative study, I will be concentrating on the genre of animation and its emotional impact on its audience. The first film goes by the name of A Silent Voice. It was released in Japan on the 20th of October 2017 and was directed by Naoko Yamada. The second film is called Rise of the Guardians and was released in America on the 21st of November 2012 and was directed by Peter Ramsey. The question I will be answering is how and with what effect were the shots, mise-en-scène, and overall theme used to create an emotional effect on the audience through character development in both The Silent Voice and Rise of the Guardians. Film animation, although different geographically, still follows certain characteristics that make it what it is. The very first commonality consists of various aspects of creativity and imagination. These are needed to create a well-directed storyboard, which in turn results in the making of characters that are constructed in order to carry on the emotional construct and passion that the director has wished to implant into the film and its audience. Secondly, the drawing skills and style of the setting, as well as the depiction of characters, is majorly influential in appealing to the audience, whether it be through mise-en-scène of the calm and honest nature of a character or the stunning glare of the water's reflection. They all contribute in more ways than one in the successfulness of the film. Lastly, the animation films sometimes stray from depicting human-like characters, yet still personify human logic and emotions through whether it be an inanimate object or animals. The human consciousness is typically always present, along with the accompanying of these human and human-like characteristics. These characters are still created to feel emotional distress as well as instilling it into the audience through tragic or fortunate means. In both films, there is the recurring theme of isolation which occurred to characters Shoko Nishimiya and Shoyo Ishida in A Silent Voice, whereas in The Rise of the Guardians it happens to only one character, Jack or Jack Frost. In Shoko's circumstance, she is isolated by her classmates for not being able to hear due to her being deaf. Although desperately trying to make friends, she is constantly bullied by Ishida, who is supported into doing these things by his friends. In Ishida's situation, he is isolated for having bullied Shoko repeatedly, regardless of her feelings and state. The other students blame him even though previously supporting his actions. As for Jack, he was isolated through his state of not being able to be seen by humans, and is forced to spend years without making any physical or auditory connections with anyone at all. In this scene, we can see that Shoko is playing at the park and suddenly thrown rocks at by Ishida. Ishida, being there to tell her that they are going to get tired of her, is then unexpectedly hand-signed by Shoko that she wishes to become friends with him, to which he responds by throwing sand into her face and telling her that she's gross. The lighting aspect of mise-en-scène is heavily focused on natural lighting to create this sincere atmosphere, yet when focusing out, develops a saddening feeling instead. Ishida then, with his friends, write on the board that it's Shoko's fault that a girl who was friendly to Shoko had transferred schools in order to make her feel bad. Shoko then suddenly comes into the room and reads what is written on the board. He then erases it and is thanked by Shoko. In this scene, the natural lighting is darker, which indicates Shoko's slow realization of there seemingly being no hope of fitting in with the others. The next day, Ishida yells close to Shoko's ears, where she has her hearing aids, which startles her, later on being asked by a classmate if she can see them. She lets her see it, but then passes it on to Ishida, who then throws them out of the window and remarks on there being earwax on them. He continues to do such things as yell in her ear, throw her hearing aid in the trash and water, trip her, make fun of her, spray water at her, until finally pulling her hearing aids out of her ears forcefully and causing her to bleed. This further demonstrates the insufferable isolation to where the audience can't help but feel bad for Shoko. In this instance of Shoei Ishida, in this opening scene, he has begun to be bullied by his friends because of him having hurt Shoko. Even though they were supporting him, they began to trip him, beat him up, and sprayed with water. Ishida then goes into his homeroom class and is greeted by Shoko, cleaning off his desk, which had hateful comments of him scribbled on it. Yes, what she's doing to his desk, and insults her by calling her a creep. She smiles. Beginning to get aggressive with Shoko, they begin to fight, and eventually after pushing him down to the ground floor, she says, "I'm doing the best that I can." He responds by saying that he doesn't understand what she's saying because of her non-understandable speech skills. Shoko begins to cry and later on transitions to a field of flowers and the teacher telling the class that Shoko has transferred to another school. The mise-en-scène scene of the field of flowers, accompanied by the bright natural lighting, expresses Shoko's freedom from her suffering at the school, which in turn paints Ishida's character as a horrible person for having hurt an innocent girl, causing the audience to develop a hate for Ishida rather than empathy for his isolation. Jack's isolation stems from him being turned into something else that once was human. As Jack flies down into the village after finding out about his newfound powers, he attempts to make conversation with the village people. Later on, after having a kid run through him as if he were a ghost, he realizes that no one can see him and or hear him. Having it confirmed by being passed through 3 more times, the dark lighting of the village creates a sense of gloom which makes Jack's character seem depressing and sad based off the situation and dark lighted setting. Both films include the same theme of self-sacrifice and belonging which occurred to Shoko, Ishida, and Jack as well. Shoko attempts to kill herself so that her existence doesn't plague other people, whereas Ishida saves Shoko, but in the process falls over the edge himself. Yet both Shoko and Ishida find belonging in each other, whereas Jack saves his sister from a frozen over lake and ends up falling in her stead, and later proceeds to find his belonging among the Guardians. Ishida and Shoko's act of self-sacrifice are done with other people in mind. The same shot with the fireworks in the background can be seen with Shoko mounting the ledge of the balcony. Ishida rushes to her and sees a clear view of her attempting to commit suicide. The fireworks again in the background with her robe or kimono waving in the wind transitions the feeling from happy to morbid, resulting in an increase in anxiety and worry from the audience. Blurry and shaky shots create a sense of disparity and puts the audience on their toes. Ishida made it in time and was able to grab her hand and tries to pull her up. As he pulls her up to safety, he uses his body weight to get her back up on the balcony, but falls instead, which causes him to plummet into a body of water where he is seen bleeding, turning him from a bully and hated character to a good person willing to put his life on the line, his blood encompassing his will to sacrifice himself for her, later on even telling her to help him live, creating a sense of belonging for both of them. After having seen the sheet of ice from under his sister crack, Jack is given a split moment to pull her away from the cracking of the frozen lake. But in doing so, switches with his sister and falls into the very abyss of frozen water himself. The mid-shot and lighting of the wound creates this feeling of both sadness from him giving his life to save a family member and being ascended into another being or reincarnation in a sense. Later in the film, he is asked by the Guardians if he has finally decided upon becoming one himself, which is a task where he will need to protect the children of the world forevermore. In agreeing to this, he finds belonging in a group of individuals who are of similar nature to him, creating the effect of happiness and a familial bond, in a way.
Vow to watch over the children of the world, to guard them with your life, their hopes, their wishes, and their dreams, for they are all that we have, all that we are, and all that we will ever be.
I will.